This is our last mini lesson on Chapter 10, Growth and Expansion, and it is an interesting story that helps explain how America got closer to civil war. So let's get it started. It is called Unity and Sectionalism Manifest Destiny. Take a look at these pictures to start off. Two major topics we're going to talk about is the Monroe Doctrine. This is Uncle Sam standing over North America and South America. This is a big deal. And then the Missouri Compromise. Here's little Missouri and what it would do in 1820. Let's talk about what's happened so far. So in 10.1, we talked about economic growth, mainly of economics, and how business boomed with inventions. In 10.2, we talked about how the nation moved west on the Erie Canal in New York and along rivers with things like the steamboat and also the national roads and turnpikes. Now we are going to talk about unity and how our country was focused and together and very proud. James Monroe is president. He wins the election of 1820, and he's a Republican. He represents an era of good feeling, and this is because we have beaten the British now a second time in the War of 1812, which ended in about 1814, 1815. So we're very proud of what we've accomplished as Americans and how we're doing so far. There was a growth program in America. We've had, and this is something you got to add, we had high tariffs, so we discouraged buying outside of American goods. We really put heavy taxes on Great British goods like cloth and made American goods cheaper, so we were buying American. We created a second national bank to help reduce our country's debt, and all those internal improvements, right, like building a road and building canals, helped our country expand. It was a good time in America. Let's talk about the second bank, though. The era of good feeling would not last forever. The first bank of the United States closed, and as a result of that, the state banks began putting too much money into the economy, trying to take advantage of the system and earn money just like the first national bank did. When we have too much money in our economy, it's called inflation. And what happens is the value of the dollar decreases, so it costs more money to buy those things you like Oreo cookies, baseball cards, corn, whatever it might be. So prices of goods were raised to compensate this, and more workers end up being fired, and a depression sets in. And depression is 2 or more consecutive periods of decline and no growth. It's not good. At the same time, sectionalism is born. Sectionalism we will define as the differences in goals and interests of 3 areas of our country. We've got the North, where factories, banks, and business dominate. This makes sense. We don't have a long growing season here in Wisconsin. We rely on short growing seasons in services, in banking, and business, and factories. In the South, shown right here, we've got cotton growing, we've got farming of various animals of all sorts. Agriculture and cotton are huge. Slavery is huge with it. We need people to pick the cotton, to get the rice grains, and to harvest the sugar, and we don't have the machines to do it just yet. In the West, all out here, the Louisiana Territory, we've got a lot of corn, wheat, agriculture, all growing like crazy. And the question mark, make sure you add this to slavery, because the big question is, would there be slavery or would there not be slavery? And so I want you to think about what created these 3 differences in regions. The answer's pretty simple. Okay? The first is geography, right? We know that we can grow things in the South pretty much year-round, from pretty much Missouri down to Florida, Texas. In the North, we can't do that. As a result of geography, economics is different. We know in the North, how you make money is different. We have small farm periods where we can grow things, and we mainly got to find something to do when it's snowy and wintry, like work in a factory. In the South, they can farm year-round, so they don't need to worry about working in factories. The history and culture of each region is different too, and that has to do with the economy and the geography. So in the South, lots of outdoors things, very, very popular. In the North, indoor things become popular, more museums, more libraries, because people need to do things inside. So we got all 3 of these things driving sectionalism. And sectionalism can be thought about as division in a sense, right? The North has their divided goals. The South has theirs, and the West has theirs. And this would eventually split us up and help, I shouldn't say help, because it didn't help, cause the Civil War. All right, question on this topic. What would sectionalism split the country? Here's the first test. Around 1820, Missouri, right here on this map, it's about right there, would want to become a state. They have 60,000 or more people. They want to join the country. But this would upset a balance of power. Remember, in politics, it's pretty much about equality at this time in American history, and we want to balance out the slave states of the South with the free states of the North. So, we got to do this in government. Very difficult to do. In the House of Representatives, we have 105 that represent the North in northern interests and northern goals, and only 81 in the South. That's a pretty big disparity when it comes to lawmaking. The South, not too happy about it. But when it comes to the Senate, there's an equal number, 11 and 11. 11 slave states, 11 free states. The question is, if Missouri enters, is it going to be a free state? Or is it going to be a slave state? We don't know. Most people living in Missouri actually come from Kentucky and Tennessee. Those are generally known as slave states at this time in U.S. history. So Missouri is thinking, let's be a slave state. The North would not be very happy about this, right? Because they would be outbalanced 12 to 11. Unfair. So a compromise has to take place. Luckily at the time, little old Maine up here has enough people to become a state. Maine is a northern state. What they do is they make both states, one is slave, one is free. Missouri would be slave, Maine would be free. Why would this be a temporary solution, you might ask yourself? It should be simple. As our country grows, as our country expands, we move out west in these territories of Nebraska and Kansas, soon enough Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma. What would they be, slave or free? So it's only a temporary solution, and that's because new territories would upset the balance, just like Missouri did. During this time, we always have to deal with Europe, right? There's a new relationship of powers that forms in Europe, and at the time, Britain settles the 49th parallel. That is this line right here, boys and girls. And it separates the United States and Canada. It actually sets the border, like it says here. Also sets the border of northern part of Oklahoma Territory, which, by the way, is starting to grow very popular because of its fertile soil. So Americans earn the right to settle this area called Oregon Territory. During that time, Spain, which controls Spanish Florida right here, is actually giving up the area to the United States. This is good. Americans want to settle it as a result of it, and U.S. government feels that Western Florida, this questionable area, should also be part of the LA Purchase, so it should be theirs too. The natives, however, Seminoles, are not too happy or pleased with this. They got along pretty well with the Spanish, who weren't there in large numbers, and they knew the Americans would come and flood the state. So, the Seminoles begin to attack American settlers. We've heard this story before. The Seminoles would repeat it. Strong, tough, old hickory Andrew Jackson would have to be sent in to crush the resistance and end the resistance by these Seminole tribes. In 1822, 4 countries create a plan to help Spain regain lost lands in America. Those countries are France, Austria, Prussia, and Russia. This would be known as the Quadruple Alliance. Now this seems kind of like a random fact. Why is Mr. Rush all of a sudden talking about 4 European countries that really aren't having a presence in the United States? The answer is this. They wanted to help Spain out regain Florida. This would hurt American interests in manifest destiny, spreading from ocean to ocean. And the president at the time, James Monroe, creates a law, or the Monroe Doctrine. And this says 3 very, very important things. And they're ultimatums. They are basically saying, if you break these 3 rules, we will go to war with you, and look what we've just done to Britain. We've beat them now twice. First thing it says, Europe, stay out of the Americas. No longer involve yourself here in North America. This is our turf. 2, Europe cannot make colonies in the Americas. So any new areas that might be explored or discovered, island or not, could not be claimed by France, Austria, Prussia, Russia, or any European colony for that, or country for that matter. Finally, it said the United States will not choose sides. It will pursue a policy of neutrality and remain neutral if Europe goes to war. Lastly, this picture kind of sums it up. When you draw a line in the sand, you are taking a stand against something, or you're standing up for something. Uncle Sam here represents the United States, and written in the dirt is Monroe Doctrine. He's saying European powers, Germany, Britain, stay out, or it'll lead to war. That's it, boys and girls. You have yourself a great day.